We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
Good to see you.
You too, man.
You're looking well. Whoa, look at us.
Jinx, double jinx. You
owe me soda.
Fuck. What have you been eating? We have a film podcast.
Well, Trent, I've had a little bit of an early morn today. I woke up. Well, I didn't have so much. I didn't wake up super early. I woke up at like 8 p.m. And I went to bed
You
at
said
like
PM.
I woke up at like 8 a.m. And went to bed at 12 a.m. So it was, your classic 8 hours of sleep. But I woke up and did some work like pretty much immediately after getting up, and then went to the gym.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Good on you. What gym do you belong to?
Trying to go to the Rutgers gym. I go to the Cook Douglas gym because I get a cheaper membership because I work for Rutgers.
So you go and you fucking pump iron?
I wouldn't say that I pump iron, but, I do 30 minutes of elliptical, 3 sets of 10 of like the lat pull downs.
Nice.
Occasionally
nice.
some leg stuff.
You're gonna be jacked, dude.
Nothing too crazy, but I do try to go every other day if possible. And I was just talking about it with my roommate Tom, and we were saying how like people when you reach adulthood go to the gym so infrequently that even if you don't like, I go to the gym and I'm like, I only kind of go to the gym because I only do the things that I stated, and that's what I do every time, and I only go every other day. But like you go into adulthood and then you see all these other adults not go to the gym ever, not do any kind of physical activity at all. And you realize the amount I'm doing puts me in the top like
10th percentile.
10th percentile immediately.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's so crazy to be like, oh, I'm the person in my household that goes to the gym the most. Like I never thought I would be that guy, but I am in many rooms that I walk in.
Because I don't go to the gym at all. I did 10 push-ups on my floor this morning, and I was like, good for me.
To be fair, though, Trent, you do a lot of PA stuff, so aren't you, like, lifting heavy crap for work?
Basically all day. And
so I feel like that's different, because when I worked at TJ Maxx, I used to be I am a Maxxinista, once a Maxxinista.
Still,
always a Maxxinista. It's like a Marine.
The few, the brave, the Maxxinistas.
Exactly. When I worked at TJ Maxx, I felt like I was somewhat getting a gym workout because I would frequently be lifting heavy furniture or heavy boxes in the back rooms and moving them all around. So it was like you were still like exercising. But with what I do for work, it's all basically on the computer unless I'm on set. And so I could basically never leave my room if I wanted. Like if I didn't want to leave my room, I wouldn't have to.
I think when I was a Rutgers student, I didn't use any gym facilities for like 3.5 years. And then during my last semester, we started going and playing basketball and like going on the rowing machine and stuff. And I was like, wow, I probably should have been taking advantage of this the whole time.
I had the exact same experience. I went, my freshman year roommate, David, was a big
I remember.
A big gym guy. And kept being, and he had class early in the morning, so he would always go to the gym super early in the morning because he wanted to get a workout in before class. So he'd go at like 6 a.m. and I hate getting up early. I don't like getting up super late or anything, but like 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m., that's perfect timing. I can even do like a 7:45. Before that is when you're starting to like get on my nerves that I have to get up that early. But my roommate was always talking about like how I had to go to the gym with him to get, quote, ripped. One day I relented and was like, you know what? I'm at college now. Maybe
I'll get ripped.
Well, maybe I'll like, work out. Maybe this will actually happen. And I'll start getting up earlier because at the time I was going to bed at like 3 a.m. and waking up at like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
You're web sleuthing?
Something like that. In the dark corners of the web. And I went to the gym with him, and he made me do a workout that made me so fucking sore
Yeah, that's how it works.
I was sore for 2 weeks afterwards. I could not raise my arms without them hurting.
It's
And
because you did too intensive a workout
it
immediately.
put me off the gym for 4 or 5 years.
That's a good ratio. Even, long after you were not sore anymore. But, like, that's normal. You just, like, did too hard of a workout.
Yeah. But to answer your initial question, all I had was a chai this morning. So I'm sort of looking forward to this ending and then me eating some food. What about you, Trent?
Wait, dude, me too. I've had nothing, but my call time is until 1 p.m. today. So I think after this, I'm going to go have a bit of a king's breakfast.
Very nice. Very nice.
And get a bacon, egg, cheese, and make a smoothie. And then go tackle the obstacles of the day. I have to drive a bunch of people to Philadelphia and back.
That sounds awesome.
My whole job is driving and lifting stuff, so I'm not even that deterred. Philadelphia is such a lovely place. Wink, wink.
I like Philadelphia.
Yeah, no, me too. It's as good as New York.
I didn't say that.
No, it's all love. It's actually the city of brotherly love, so it's all brotherly love. Wait, I want to show some love to, like, this week's guest. When should we start doing that? After the intro or before? Should we start complimenting him now, or should we cue the intro and then start talking about
Trent,
guests?
This has gone on long enough. Cue the intro.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week we had DP Brett Jutkiewicz. He's DP'd a bunch of cool movies that Parth will intro in a second, so I won't repeat it, but a bunch of cool like horror movies and stuff. And this week's movie, Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, and he also did the first Ready or Not movie. It was pretty cool. I wasn't there, but Parth seems pretty cool. I mean, I wrote some of the questions and saw the movie, and I enjoyed it. So, like,
Trent, a valiant trooper, went to go see Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, after going to work, after a long work day, and then found out that he was called into work earlier than usual, or maybe... Were you even supposed to be working that day, but you then did get called in, or they changed the call time?
I was scheduled not to work, and then they asked / told me, "Can you
will be there?"
You are working tomorrow,
and so it meant that Trent couldn't. So this is 2 interviews in a row, Trent.
I think that's the first time that's ever happened. That's really not a good reflection.
No,
Bash has got to be like Bash has got to be like licking his lips right now.
Producer Bash, he's looking to fill in for you, Trent.
Bash, if you're hearing this, it'd be my honor. All you gotta do, watch the movie, write some questions, and yeah. But like watch yourself. Like only if something comes up. Like if I'm free, like maybe you could be a third chair, but like I'm definitely the second chair. Parth's the first chair. That's obvious to everyone. Everyone, including Brett Jutkiewicz, who Parth spent 50 minutes asking our cool questions and talking about the cool movie. And Parth, it went pretty cool. It went pretty well.
Yeah, I would say it went pretty well. Brett was a cool guy. Worked on a lot of cool things. We get into his whole career, kind of. Worked with, I mean, we'll get into it in the interview, but there's some Safdie's talks. It's pretty cool who he was friends with early on in his career and how that sort of led him on the trajectory he's on now. Kind of want you, the listener, to get in on it. So why don't we cue the interview? Hello, everyone, and welcome to our interview with Brett Jutkiewicz. He's the cinematographer behind such films as The Black Phone, Scream, Ready or Not, and our film for this week, its sequel, Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start off, could you talk about when you first knew you wanted to become a cinematographer?
Yeah, sure. In high school, I started getting really into still photography. That was kind of my first introduction, towards becoming a cinematographer. But at the time, I was just shooting a lot of photographs and spending a lot of time in my high school darkroom, printing, developing mostly black and white photos at that time, and just kind of fell in love with that process and fell in love with the, process of creating images and having a camera in my hands and, looking for things in the world to photograph. And so that's kind of where I started. And at the same time, I was, skateboarding and part of a group of people who were skateboarding and BMX biking. And so I would, make little videos with a camcorder, my parents' camcorder. I would take it and go out and make videos of just my friends and skateboarding. And, I never really thought about it as a career. I don't think it ever actually struck me that I had no idea that cinematography was a thing, a career. I didn't really understand what it was. I liked movies, growing up as a kid. I wasn't a huge cinephile. I wasn't exposed to, kind of independent or art films growing up. I didn't find those until later, but definitely things like, Star Wars and Jurassic Park, those kind of big spectacle films growing up made an impression on me, and I love them, but I never really connected the dots to pursuing cinematography as a career until I was in college. I had actually started as a computer science major because I thought that would be good for a career to get into, and I kind of felt like photography and making videos was just a passion of mine that was kind of something I would do on the side, not necessarily a career. And then I started becoming friends with film students while I was at school. And that's when I kind of realized, maybe this thing that I already kind of love doing and I'm passionate about could be a career. So I switched majors in college and started studying film. And that's kind of how I started. And that's really where I had the realization that maybe I could do this as a career and started to develop those skills.
If you look at your early IMDb credits, there's sort of a who's who of people that maybe at the time weren't who they are now, but they certainly went on to become big deals, one of whom are the Safdie brothers. You shot some of their early projects. Can you talk about meeting them and, how those short films ended up happening?
Yeah, so we actually went to college together at Boston University, and Josh Safdie was in my year, and Benny was a year below us. But so Josh was in a lot of my film classes, including our film production classes, where we'd actually make short films. And in those classes, you kind of decide if you want to be a director and editor, cinematographer, and then as a cinematographer, I worked on other students' films that were directing. And Josh, I had become friends with even before switching into the film program. So I knew him. So it was kind of natural that we would start working together because he was directing and I wanted to shoot. So we started working together there along with Sam Lysenko's production designer.
Also a guest of the show.
Oh, nice. That was kind of the beginning. We made a few short films in college that wound up finding some success at film festivals around the world. And so, we kind of had that momentum going. And when we graduated, we were at Boston University. But when we all graduated, we all moved to New York City and started had a little collective. We had rented this kind of artist studio space downtown Manhattan and just started making stuff and more short films. And then eventually that led to my first feature film, which was Josh Safdie's directorial debut called The Pleasure of Being Robbed, his first feature. And so, we were just kind of shooting what we could, figure out how to make on the limited means that we had at the time. And I was working with the Safdies and some other people who were working in independent film in New York at the time. But that's kind of how it started.
Awesome. And speaking of those relationships, I mean, to get to the topic of the day, you've worked with directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette a few times now. Can you talk about first meeting them, and was your first movie with them Ready or Not 1?
Yeah, my first film with them was the first Ready or Not with Matt and Tyler, and that came just normally through my agent. I got sent the script, and I really enjoyed it, and we had a Zoom meeting and got along well, and kind of think felt like we were very similar. We both came from kind of scrappy independent film backgrounds, and so we were very of a similar age too, and we hit it off and felt like we had a lot of similar kind of initial thoughts visually about what the film might look like. So they hired me to do the film, and so went to Toronto and met them there, and that was the first time I met them, first time I worked with them.
That movie came out 2019. This movie 2026. Obviously, sort of a big time jump. You guys did some movies in between. Can you talk about when you first knew that the sequel? I guess your first knowledge of its conception, and also like when you were like, okay, there's dates. We're doing it. Like what was that timeline like for you?
Yeah, I heard, I don't know exactly when, but it was a couple of years ago that I heard that they were thinking about doing the sequel. And at the time, I'm not sure if I think there was potentially some conflict with Matt and Tyler's schedule about doing the film, and they weren't sure they were going to be able to do it. And then eventually it worked out that they were able to direct it, which is great. And so, probably a couple of years ago, I heard that it might be happening, and then really I think it was fairly quick from, when I heard, oh, this is definitely happening to when I was back in Toronto shooting it, probably less than 6 months, maybe 4 months before, it was like, it felt like it was real, and they were going to do it, and it was happening. So it was pretty quick, that timeline.
And what did your pre-production process look like, I guess, on this one and on the first one? So, because I guess you're building off of, a lot of the work you're doing on the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pre-production process, wasn't very different from my general process, and starts with, obviously in the first film, I was getting to know Matt and Tyler, and on this film, this is our fourth film together. So we were much closer friends. We understand each other's sensibilities. We have a shorthand. So in that way, it was very easy to get started on this film because we were so familiar with each other and our process that we've developed together over the course of these, 3 previous films. But, it starts getting there to Toronto and immediately getting into a van and starting to scout locations. Obviously the big difference on this film is that there were a lot more locations. I mean, the story of Ready or Not 2 takes place essentially in one big resort compound. But because that doesn't exist in Toronto, we had to find all these disparate locations and piece them together and create this one compound. So that was a big thing, we talked about from the very beginning, is trying to maintain a visual continuity between, these locations, which might be an hour apart in Toronto, but have to appear as if they're, part of the same compound. And so that was kind of the first step in the prep process. And I think, similar to the first film, the location scouting is so important. I mean, especially the first film being really taking place in one mansion, which wound up being shot in 2 locations, mostly 2 locations. So that was, finding the right spaces that would give us this kind of sense. We really wanted to find spaces for the first film that would, feel like all these different rooms, and you can kind of get lost in it. And it has all this kind of old world, kind of moneyed feeling, and this kind of darkness and opulence that fit the story. And so that was very important. And then likewise on this film, just finding these spaces that could tell this bigger story with a grander scope, but in a similar kind of vein of this old world money.
And how much of the movie was on stage versus on location?
On the first film, I don't think we didn't shoot anything on stage on the first film. It was all on location. Yes, I'm pretty sure. And this film, I would say, we called it the club room, which is like the main where we first Grace and Faith are introduced to the families, that main room with all the TV screens and the windows and the entryway to the temple downstairs. That was built on stage. And so that was, a couple of weeks of our shoot just in that space. So I would say probably, 20% on stage. I think we had a couple other small pieces on stage, but that club room was kind of the main build.
And do you operate the camera yourself?
Not on this film. No. I generally, when I'm shooting two cameras like we did on this film, I like to be able to be at the monitor so I can see both cameras at the same time. So I had luckily had two great camera operators on this film, and so yeah, I like being at the monitors. I can run over the directors and kind of talk about what we're seeing and what we might want to change on the the next take or the next setup or whatever it is. But I find it really, at this point, it's been a few years since I've operated.
I'm sure your back is thanking you.
Yeah, it helps for my back for sure, but I just, I like to be able to, well, first of all, I like to get the input from operators in terms of, talking about what we're trying to capture in the scene and describing, my thoughts and my ideas and then having their feedback. I just find that collaborative process really, really beneficial towards the look of the film. So I like that part. I like to be able to, line up the shot with the operators and the directors and then let them work with the grips to, set up what they need to set up while I'm working with the gaffer on the lighting. So I become really comfortable working that way, and so that's how we worked on this one.
Can you talk about ratcheting up the tension throughout the movie and how you changed your visual approach as the fights progressed throughout the movie?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that the main thing we were trying to do is really put the audience kind of within the experience of Grace and Faith, and really feel like we were immersing them in this experience and not kind of looking at it from a distance, but experiencing it from within. So that was always our kind of driving motivation, throughout the film, and looking for, based on kind of the emotion of what's happening in the scene. If it's building tension, maybe we're on dollies with slow movements or steady cam, depending if we're following through spaces, but looking for those kind of smoother creeping movements to increase tension in those moments. And then a lot of the action and fight sequences were handheld, just in part to reinforce the kind of visceral nature of it, and in part just practically being close to the action, close to the actors, and again, putting the audience kind of in their shoes and wanting to be able to kind of explore those moments freely with our actors and with our stunt performers.
The end of the first movie, I mean, if you're at the Ready or Not 2 interview, then I don't mind spoiling the end, where the family all gets blown up, is a big surprise. But with this, that's sort of inbuilt within the movie and sort of feels like there's more of a VFX component to this movie than there might have been on the first movie. I don't know if that's accurate. It's just how it feels watching it. Can you talk about that collaboration, and like what, especially the effect of people getting blown up is quite satisfying. Can you talk about what it's like on your end shooting that stuff, what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, on both films, the exploding people were done mostly practically and with a pretty similar methodology. We had basically multiple passes of each shot, where we keep the camera locked off in its place. We do one pass of the action with the actors, essentially up until the point where they explode, and then we call them blood cannons. We bring in these devices made by the special effects department that are kind of like compressed air powered mortars, essentially, that spray blood all over the room. They had a few, there was like kind of the big one that was when when somebody was kind of like a wider shot of a character exploding, and then they had smaller kind of handheld cannons that we used to spray blood on the cast who's getting hit by blood, separate shot. But really, it was mostly practical, and except for the VFX, obviously they had to paint out the blood cannon itself. So we would do a pass with the actors, a pass with the blood cannons, and then a clean plate with no cast and no special effects equipment. So that could be cleaned up. And it really was a similar process to the first movie. I think the blood cannon technology had evolved and become more advanced on this film. And of course we have the kind of finale, which is the multiple characters exploding in the pit at the end, which was its own thing. But yeah, Tyler and Matt and myself really love to do things as practically as possible when we can. And for me, it was working with the special effects department to make sure that I was seeing all of their tests, and looking at specifically, the color of the blood, how dark it is, and thinking about the various, because we had lots of different environments where these explosions happen in terms of lighting. And so just making sure that the blood, I'm confident that the blood is going to read well in these spaces. So it's a lot of communication with the special effects department and making sure I'm involved in their tests of the explosions. So I know what to expect, because a lot of them, the advantage to doing it practically is that it looks great on camera. The blood is actually hitting the walls and the floors and the people in the room, and which always looks better. The disadvantage is once you do the explosion, there's basically no take two, because cleaning up the blood is basically impossible, because it would just take too long. So was also about scheduling and shooting those little sequences chronologically, so we knew that once blood went everywhere, we wouldn't have to go back and clean it up to shoot something that happened earlier. So a lot of logistics and scheduling as well. But yeah, very similar process on both movies.
Since we're getting into sort of more specific scenes, the movie opens with what was the last shot of the last film. But I saw it in a theater, so I couldn't do a side-by-side, analysis. Was it the same shot stitched together with the new material, or did you reshoot that shot?
Well, I'm glad you couldn't tell. So that was the same shot. We reused the same shot from the first film and then stitched it through Matt Whelan, who was our incredible VFX supervisor, and his team to the new material that we shot on this film. And that was something that opening we talked a lot about in prep and went through a few different iterations of how we might photograph that. And it wasn't, it was scripted that, we pick up with her on the steps, just as we left her. But that idea of literally continuing the same shot was something that we came to in prep. And I had this idea to do this body mount camera, and I remember, pitching it to Matt and Tyler, and I'm like, maybe this is crazy. It's going to be, I'm sure, difficult for VFX to blend these shots together, but wouldn't it be amazing if we, pick up with her like continuously, seamlessly, and all of a sudden the camera's attached to her and she falls over, and then in the same shot she gets picked up, put on the gurney, rolled into the ambulance, all in one shot. And they were like, yes, it's crazy. We love it. Let's start to think about how we can actually make it happen. And so, I think that was only, a couple weeks out from shooting, we decided to go for that. And so the art department built a portion of the stairs to match what we had on the location. So we didn't go back to that location at all. So they built the steps. We had blue screen behind her. And fortunately on the first film, because the mansion was on fire, which was done digitally in VFX, we already had plate shots of the house that existed. So we were able to comp that in behind Samara on the steps, and we had this body mounted camera that fell over with her and continued the shot, and the like stone pathway that she's rolled across on the gurney is just a like printed vinyl or something that the art department created. So it's not even real stone. And then we just had the back, we had an ambulance, like a Sprinter van kind of ambulance that she goes into. So it was very kind of difficult logistically to figure out, but I'm really happy with how it came out.
It's one of my favorite shots in the movie, and it just is like, I guess, a more visually it seems simple, but it just, I don't know, it's trying to figure out the effect, reverse engineering it. Always love a snorri cam.
Yeah, it was real kudos to we did for that shot. We went back to the same camera that we used on the first film, which was the Alexa Mini, which we used on this sequel. We used the Alexa 35, but we went back to the same camera with the same look that we used on the previous film, just to try to match it as closely as we could. But really, it was it's amazing that the VFX department was able to match, to blend those shots so seamlessly, because Samara amazingly looks very similar to how she did 8 years ago.
That's usually the problem with a shot like that.
Yeah. Long time. And so that, that obviously made it possible to begin with, and, the makeup department and the hair, did a great job getting that blood in her hair as close as we could, but it was never going to be exact. So, the VFX had to blend it all together, and I think it turned out really nicely.
Any reason for the camera change? Just a bump in money? I
had used the Alexa 35 on a few projects before. I just did season 5 of Stranger Things on it, and there's a couple features before that, and I really loved it. I mean, it's got that slightly higher resolution than the Alexa Mini, but still the Super 35 size sensor. So I felt like, we wanted to keep some continuity with the previous film, especially since we were talking about this like kind of continuation of the story. Didn't want to switch to something wildly different, but I think I really love the Alexa 35 just for its color rendition, sensitivity. So I think it's just an upgrade to the Alexa Mini without being too different.
What an interview, Trent.
That was pretty fun, Parth.
It was only part 1, so it was part fun, but not part done.
No.
Because part 2 is the glue that holds us all together. But Trent, I know you weren't there.
I'm eager to listen.
Yeah. Well, Trent, it's after the interview has happened, so you've listened to it, right?
Okay, I just listened. Great job, Parth. This is great. But, some of the questions were mine, so I gotta, also say, great job, Trent.
Thank you so much to Brett Jutkiewicz for coming on the show. We're looking forward to having part 2 out next Sunday. Yeah, he was super cool, and I hope we can have him on again, because he's working on huge things. He just did the last season of Stranger Things. He also worked on season 4. So hopefully we'll have him on for whatever the next project he takes on.
Wait, but he'll also be on just next week,
that's
for
true.
part 2. It's
That's
not
true.
done yet, Parth.
It's not part done. Yeah,
there's already some sort of sadness behind your voice, but relish in the moment.
I know it's a problem of mine to pre-buy my sadness, but you should pre-buy our episode, which will come out next week. But you actually don't even have to buy it because we give
They're
it
free.
for free.
So that's the beautiful thing. When imagine if you went to the store and you're like, I want to buy this, and then they're like, oh great, it's free.
It's yours. You have it.
Like that's our podcast on
is.
all available streaming platforms. Like
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, etc. We're also uploading to YouTube now. Trent, our X interview with Elliot Rocket just uploaded. Our back catalog has slowly been uploading. Right now we're in 2022 range.
someone should play it at like all our episodes at crazy speed, and you could watch our equipment and social skills and interview skills improve.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to listen to any of our old interviews because anytime I do, it makes me want to
Upset.
die.
What'd you say? Cry?
Want to die.
Oh, yeah. It makes me upset, and then it makes me cry, and then it makes me want to die. But also,
And I ain't gonna lie,
I cried at Jurassic World Rebirth
you should lie about that, Trent.
and at Hamnet. So it's like I'm a complex person.
But Trent, are you also Sophia, good friend Sophia, a friend of the show?
Wait, from the Gone Girl episode.
From the Gone Girl episode, she says she could cry at basically any movie. Like if there's a sad thing that happens at any movie and she's like, okay, I'll cry, she could cry. Are you like that?
No, not at all. I could never like cry on demand.
Well, that's not quite what she's saying, but she's saying like if a movie is meant to, if like there's an emotional moment in a movie where it's like the movie is telling you this is sad, like oh no, like the dad has to leave his son for the period of the, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, here's something interesting. I only cry in the theater. Like that's the only time I'm immersed enough.
really?
Uh-huh.
But you also watch things in a crazy way. Like you'll
That's
have
true.
you'll say I watched a movie and that'll mean that like it was
I
on
fu-
in the background while
While
you
I
made an
cleaned my
omelet
room.
and like, so I feel like with the theater you're locked in and having to actually see it. Whereas if you watch it at home, I think there's too many distractions. So it's like you could never, I think if you actually sat down and were like, I'm not going to do anything and watch the movie, I think you could get there.
I think so too. But there's just like too much real life going on. But one know something, Part? That's the fucking magic of the movies nowadays.
That is the magic of the movies. It's also the magic of craft services because you can go to see the magic of movies and find out how they were made. Because these episodes, they come out every week on Sunday at 5 a.m. EST. Sorry, ET. We're no longer in daylight
My
savings
dad
time.
said he listens every Sunday morning now.
Does
He's
he
like-
really?
He was like, not at 5 a.m. No, don't worry. Not at 5 when I wake up at a reasonable hour. But shout
That's
out,
fine. That's
shout out,
fair.
Pops. Yeah, within the past year, I would say multiple of my nuclear family members have come to me and be like, yo, Trent, the podcast ain't even bad, though.
Which is just the kind of compliment you want to receive after doing it for, what is it?
No, but like they were saying
6
like
years.
it's low-key good.
No, I know. But I feel like a lot of people, when they compliment the podcast, to me at least, also feel a need to be like, oh, that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I've been doing it for 6 years, so it's interesting that it took until now for you to tell me that it's
Or to use
It's
the word
actually not.
actually.
it's
It's
actually not
kind
bad.
of interesting.
And then there's people like your friends, Trent, who rate our show 1 star.
No friend of mine.
Folks,
5 stars, four at a minimum. It's
write
like
a review. Tell a friend. It really helps.
it really helps. Instagram, Twitter. Shout out our producer Bash. You da boy. You're
Da boy.
you're him, Bash.
You're about to replace Trent.
Well, all right, Parth. It's funny when I say it, but when you say it, it hurts my feelings.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trent. He could never replace you. But again, thank you so much to our guest, Brett Jutkiewicz, for coming on. Can't wait to have you on next week. Listeners, make sure to come back next week to listen to it. And Trent,
Parth, I'll see you around, man.
see you later, boy.